In this video, we are going to discuss what's called Hess's law. So Henri Hess made several important observations about chemical changes. One is that a specific chemical reaction is accompanied by a characteristic change in energy. So in other words, if you run a reaction with a certain number of moles of each reactant, you will always get the same amount of energy from that reaction. Number two, new chemical reactions can be devised by combining other known chemical reactions. So you can take two known chemical reactions, combine them together in a certain way, and then you can come up with a new chemical reaction from that. Number three, the change in energy of the combined chemical reaction is the algebraic equivalent of adding up all the changes in energy for each chemical reaction being combined. So when we come up with those new chemical reactions by combining the known ones, we end up with a characteristic change in energy for that new chemical reaction. Number four, when a reaction is reversed, the change in energy is equal in magnitude but opposite in sign. So in other words, if you have a reaction that has a negative delta H, if you reverse it, you have the same magnitude but it is a positive delta H. Number five, the change in energy varies linearly with the change in the amount of each of the reactants. So in other words, if you run a reaction with 1 mole and you get its characteristic change in energy, then you use 2 moles, then the amount of energy will have doubled. So it goes up linearly with the amount of reactants. These amount to Hess's law, which says we can combine reactions and know the change in enthalpy of the combination by adding the heats of reaction for each of the reaction being combined. This is useful because we can come up with the heats of reaction for more complex reactions just by knowing the heats of formation for each of the compounds in the reaction. Then, since the delta H for the reaction is a state function, if we know the heats of formation for the compounds in the products and the compounds in the reactants, we can simply just add up the heats of formation for the products and subtract from it the heats of formation for the reactants. So that looks like this. We're in the first square brackets here. We're just adding up the molar amounts times the molar enthalpy here for the products, then we just subtract off the same thing for the reactants here. So for instance, if we want to calculate the heat of this reaction right here, where we have this iron 3 oxide plus this sulfur trioxide, is becoming this iron 3 sulfate right here. So we can combine up the heats of formation for each of these compounds in the reaction. So we have the heat of formation for iron 3 oxide, the heat of formation for sulfur trioxide, and the heat of formation for iron 3 sulfate right here. So these are just the equations for forming these compounds from the constituent elements right here. And then we have the heats for each of these. So we can use Hess's law, which says that we can flip things and multiply, and then we just have to do the same thing to the heat. So what we can do is flip our formation for the iron 3 oxide, and the reason we want to do that is because it's in the reactants here, but it was in the products in our formation reaction. We also want to flip the one for the sulfur trioxide. Again, that's because it's a reactant, but it was a product in this formation reaction right here. Then we also want to multiply by 3 for this sulfur trioxide here, since we had 3 of them in our reaction up here. So we then just have to do that same thing to the heats. So we see that this goes from negative to positive, this goes from negative to positive, and is multiplied by 3, where then this last one here is just staying the same. I did change it so that it's now 12 over 2 instead of 6, and that's just so we can see how the oxygens here are canceling out. Since we don't have any oxygens here in our overall reaction, we want those to cancel out. So we see that 9 halves plus 3 halves gives us 12 halves. So that'll cancel out with the 12 halves right here. And so that will give us our reaction that we saw up here. And then we want to combine these together. So we want to add up all of these heats of reaction right here. And so we end up with this for our heat of reaction. But adding up the enthalpies using Hess's law like that is just exactly the same as adding up all of the products and subtracting off all of the reactants right here. You see I have these color coded, so this negative here is just because we flipped these two. So these two become negative. These are the reactants. We're subtracting those off. Similarly, we have this 3 here because we have a 3 in our overall reaction, and that comes from the fact that we multiplied by 3. So using our Hess's law like this and just adding up all the products and subtracting off the sum of all the reactants is doing exactly the same thing. So doing those two different techniques are just two ways of doing the same thing. Hess's law can also be used when we want to know the heat of a reaction that is done at a non-standard temperature. So in the previous video, we talked about how we like to think of reactions happening at a standard temperature and pressure. So that was 1 atmosphere and 298 Kelvin. All we need to do if we want to do this at a non-standard temperature is consider the change in enthalpy of the reactants going from the non-standard temperature to the standard temperature. Then the enthalpy of the reaction reaction, then the change in enthalpy of the products going from the standard temperature back to the non-standard temperature. In other words, we need to know these three things. So we want to know the change in enthalpy of the reactants as we change from the non-standard to standard temperature. Then we want the change in enthalpy for the reaction. Then we want to the change in enthalpy as we bring the products back to that non-standard temperature. And so then the change, the delta H of the reaction, when not at standard temperature, is calculated by just adding up these three delta H's here. And we can think about it this way. So our enthalpy is on the x-axis, the temperature is on the y-axis. So we start here with our reactants. We then have this change in enthalpy as we go up in temperature. You could also reverse this and have it be going down in temperature if we were at a higher non-standard temperature, but this illustration is showing it at a lower than standard temperature. So we increase the temperature, then we have the reaction go, then we bring the temperature back down again. And so we see that this one is sloping this way, and so that's because we would have negative enthalpy for this. And the way I have this set up, so the Cp here, that is our heat capacity, and this R just means for the reactants, where this is the heat capacity for our products. So the slope of these would be proportional to the heat capacities for the reactants and for the products. We can see what's going on up here, where this is the delta H for the reactants, then the delta H for the reaction, then the delta H for the products. So we would end up back here for the products. So then the difference between this point and this point would be the change in enthalpy for the entire reaction at this non-standard temperature. In addition to enthalpy, this product minus reactants technique also works for internal energy. So again, we just add up the change in internal energy for the products and subtract off the sum of the internal energy changes for the reactants. To relate the enthalpy and internal energy, recall that the enthalpy is equal to the internal energy plus the PV, so pressure times volume, and that we derived an expression for the infinitesimal change in enthalpy that ended up being after the product rule, this right here, where we get these two terms from the product rule. If the reaction occurs at constant volume, then this PdV will be equal to 0 and work will equal to 0, and so we have this, where we now say that the change in internal energy is just the heat plus this V times dP. We integrate this to get this right here, where we have the change in enthalpy at constant volume being equal to the heat plus V times the change in pressure. Since under constant volume, the infinitesimal change in internal energy is just equal to the infinitesimal heat, this means we can use this right here as one of the ways to calculate how the dH differs from the change in internal energy. Under constant pressure, we get this right here, where now it's PdV instead of VdP, which is the second way to calculate how enthalpy differs from internal energy. If the chemical process is isothermal, meaning that the temperature is not changing, and we assume an ideal gas, then we get this right here, where now we have this PdV here, which, because we are assuming an ideal gas, we can then substitute it in for this nRT right here, which ends up being dN times RT, where the dN is the change in the number of moles during the reaction. So you'll have a different number of moles in the products as you would in the reactants, because you can be combining or breaking things apart. Since R is a constant and T is a constant, since we're assuming isothermal, the chain rule of calculus does not give additional terms, and so we just end up with this right here, with this term of RT times delta N, where here pressure and volume do not need to be constant, and so under isothermal conditions, the enthalpy and internal energy are different by a factor of RT delta N, the difference due to the PV work, since we are increasing or decreasing the amount of gas. That's going to increase or decrease the volume or pressure. But anyway, that was everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you found that helpful, and I will see you in the next one.